Let's get into some of like the really big stakes crap. Candidates poured over $100 million of their own cash into campaigns in 2021. It's not even an election year, people. $100 million self-funded. You're about to see an infusion of millionaires and billionaires into our Congress, even more so than before. Okay, during the first year of the election cycle, 6 House candidates and 13 Senate candidates gave more than $1 million to their own campaigns. 5 of them spent at least $5 million of their own money self-funding. And again, this isn't an off year. They're not even an election year. The majority are Republican, of course. According to Open Secrets, Republicans last year self-funded $85.6 million, compared to Democrats only funding $22.7 million. But still, self-funding at $1 million apiece, that's 22 Democrats, and that's not very cool.
Okay.
So who are these wonderful people? Tim Ryan, who's raised over $8 million. Yep. Now, he's running, I believe, for Senate in Ohio, right? Bernie Moreno, he's a former car dealer. J.D. Vance, and this is all in Ohio? No. Self-funding among Senate candidates in Ohio. Holy crap. I thought J.D. Vance was running in Illinois. That's interesting. Okay, as the election approaches, the self-funding figures among the current congressional candidates are expected to change, both due to further self-funding in 22 and repayment of loans financed by the candidate after the election.
Right.
So majority of higher self-funding candidates are running in races labeled as toss-ups or lean Republican. 45% of the self-funding in 21 came in 3 races. 3 swing states that all, I believe, went red.
Okay.
So you got Mike Gibbons, right? Who's in Ohio, who's the self-financed the most of any candidate in 2022 cycle, $11.4 million, which is 94% of the contributions he's received. So basically, nobody wants him but him. Nobody's giving him money but him. Right?
However, Rep. David Throne, the highest self-funder in the 2018 cycle to announce as a congressional candidacy in 2017 and 3rd highest self-funder overall.
He put $2 million in.
$2.3 million in the first year of the cycle.
And he went on to self-fund $18 million. This is what they're paying to get themselves elected.
War chest shit?
This is what they're paying to get themselves elected, basically. And you know what? If they can't raise it from another billionaire or another millionaire, they're putting it in themselves. Why? Because they're seeing return on investment. They have to be.
Right. Yes.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
Rick Scott funded $63 million.
It's also part of this revolving door stuff, too. It's just, it revolves both ways. You can go from business, make a bunch of money, and then when you want to change things in business to better suit your business, you go into politics.
Or
and then
you own businesses and you make deals with your state, like what happened with Rick Scott, who owned the testing labs for drug testing.
Or your kids still own them, or your wife's friend, or you know, whoever. Like you're still going to coffee with the boys, you know. Like
it's unreal. Okay, so Trone is up for re-election.
Playing golf.
He self-funded about $500,000 in 2021, more than 93% of his campaign. So again, these guys are self-funding and they're not getting money from anybody else. And they've got name recognition and they're incumbents or former candidates. Right, this guy lost to Jamie Raskin, the most a House candidate ever self-funded at the time. He had put in $13 million, but lost. He's coming back for more. And Jamie Raskin, they have to point out that he only put in the maximum of himself at $2,700, which is pretty funny. Because Jamie Raskin's not a billionaire. He's a shitlib, but he's not a billionaire. Second biggest self-funder of 2021 was one of Gibbons' many opponents vying for a Republican primary win, Matt Dolan. $10.5 million.
Okay.
So all this money is pouring in. And where is this money going to? It's going to advertising. It's going to consultants. It's going to PACs and being funneled to other candidates. that's the other thing that's happening here. And here you go. You've got Pat Toomey and Mehmet Oz, and then Oz, Dr. Oz. He's put 5.9 million, 5.2 million of his own money. He raised $700,000.
The Democrats did it on the national stage with
Bloomberg.
What's his name?
Bloomberg. Right.
Yeah. At like what did he pay to get on?
Oh, 100 million, something like that. I mean, it was some ridiculous amount. Right. So also the only Democratic candidate to self-fund with at least 5 million in 2021. Who's this? Shri Thaindar, who is Michigan State Representative, contributed 5 million to his bid for the open congressional district seat in the House. This is what House seats cost today. Tens of millions of dollars. It's a big club, and we ain't in it. That's one you've got to grab. That's one you've got to grab for the soundboard. All right, you and I are not in the big club. All right, Glenn Youngkin contributed 20 million to his own campaign. The candidate who lost self-financed to $5.8 million. This guy lost at the Republican convention. He's out $5 million with no governorship.
Right.
So you better play for keeps, and you better play to win.
Yeah.
It's unreal.
Which is why I'm sure a lot of people don't try to do this because they don't have enough money to like throw at things like.
And in the last couple of years, you've got people who have become billionaires and multimillionaires that will now have the funds to be able to do this moving forward. And none of them are lefties, I can tell you right now. Greg Abbott self-financed to the tune of $5 million last year. A challenger to Greg Abbott, Don Hoffines, $5.2 million, and received an additional $2 million from his twin brother Phil. And he won 12% of the primary vote, placing third. And where'd all that money go? It lined somebody's pockets, and the party certainly got wealthier. And what didn't it do? It didn't help the people.
No.
All right. Phil Hoffines self-financed $7 million, and Don gave him $100,000 when he ran for Senate, unsuccessfully ran for Senate. Like, there's an entire cottage industry around blowing money from from very wealthy people, and then losing a Senate race or a House race, but getting the name recognition and making a deal with somebody else that makes it all worthwhile. All right, there's John Cox, Republican, poured more than $20 million of his own money to defeat Governor Newsom in the general and during the recall. And like you said, the 2020 election attracted record-shattering self-financing topped by Bloomberg's billion-dollar self-finance campaign. Steyer's $341 million pales in comparison, but it's actually more than 19 times the amount that Donald Trump self-financed in 2016. Wow. That's still insane. Yeah. This is corruption and hypocrisy at a scale that this is why we can't have nice things. Shout out to Katherine Huggins over at Open Secrets. And along the lines of high-level, high-stakes hypocrisy, I thought this one was a little fun. I'm a racing fan. Hold on, let's go back to you and I while I close this down and blow this up for everyone. But this is a little bit of levity. And I know that there's much larger problems in this world having to do than race cars and race teams. And these are all billionaires and billionaire toys. But I thought this was pretty interesting about Formula One's hypocrisy problem. And of course, the whole thing about auto racing and in general is pretty hypocritical. The amount of resources it takes to fly people all over and etc. But after Russia invaded Ukraine, F1's reigning champion Max Verstappen said the sport should not race in a country that's at war. So why is he competing in Gulf states that are attacking Yemen, Saudi, Dubai? So that I think he's talking about the Grand Prix of Dubai. Okay.
Yes, should be.
So sentiment was shared by almost all his Formula F1 drivers who posed for a picture in front of a Ukrainian flag with no war t-shirts. Right. So they canceled the Siberia, the one in Russia, in St. Petersburg, canceled. Ukrali, the fertilizer giant, was dropped as title sponsor for the Haas F1 team. Nikita Mazepin, whose dad controls Ukrali and his Putin crony, was sacked as Haas's driver. Like, this has affected, again, you got the Brittany Griner thing. Like, this affected sports across the world. Right? No one can now claim that F1 is not political, which makes Verstappen's anti-war stance all the more interesting because when he won the title, he did so at the track at Abu Dhabi, capital of the UAE, and UAE is partially funding the war in Yemen. And their attempts to defeat Yemen's ruthless Houthi rebel group are becoming increasingly desperate and indiscriminate. Just days before Verstappen clinched the championship, a coalition air raided 18 civilians in a residential area of Yemen. This atrocity did not stop the Red Bull ace from racing in the UAE, a country at war. Technically, you know, again, it's only okay if they're white, right? And I think that's kind of the point here. Saber Bumtaraf, a musician whose neighborhood was flattened in one of these bombings, told me it took rescuers 3 days to get to the dead bodies. Terrible. When the music stops, Yemen art and war. That's on Declassified UK. Great outlet. Subscribe to them on YouTube if you're not already. We do. Instead of condemning the Yemen war, Verstappen turned up for testing in Bahrain, a key member of the coalition, when the new season starts on Sunday. Right. So, you know, then you have the fact that there's a lot of Gulf money. Even if F1 wanted to be morally consistent, it would find opposing the war in Yemen much harder than objecting to the invasion of Ukraine. Canceling one Grand Prix in Russia, stripping the sport's worst team of its oligarch sponsor, and the slowest driver will ruffle few feathers. So Haas is no Chelsea, right? Gene Haas is an American partner with Tony Stewart, actually, in NASCAR, and he makes Haas CNC machines. But extracting F1 from the clutches of Gulf regimes is not so easy. So now Aramco is the sport's title sponsor, right? Its branding adorns every track. There's even a race in the Saudi port city of Jeddah a week after the Bahrain Grand Prix. So now you've got a lot of ties to Saudi. Some former champions have bravely expressed mild concern about racing in these regimes. After lobbying Bird, Lewis Hamilton spoke out about death penalty in Bahrain. Sebastian Vettel's criticized Saudi's persecution of gay people. Now, yet none dare mention Yemen. I think Sebastian Vettel actually was out this weekend I think he had COVID, so he didn't end up getting to race. They also appear oblivious while zooming along Jeddah's Corniche circuit that the authorities were demolishing entire neighborhoods.
All right.
The historic Red Sea without local consent. 500,000 residents were expected to be displaced. Again, it's just buying teams. Look at this. So now you've got Gulf. McLaren is majority owned by Bahrain's Sovereign Wealth Fund. McLaren also received a massive money injection last year from Saudi Public Investment Fund, which also bought Newcastle. Silverstone-based Aston Martin, which patriotically uses British Racing Green livery, has just accepted Aramco as a named sponsor. How its star driver feels about racing for the Aston Martin Aramco cognizant Formula One team remains to be seen. Oh God! All right, it's hypocritical. It's billionaire toys. We get that, to keep it in perspective. But it's just showing the naked hypocrisy of following the money.
Yeah, it's partially. It's always been dictated market value stuff too, right? Like there's a bunch of stocks predicated on these races, pretty much. Like,
sure, but again, a lot of this is just marketing globally for them, and it's also the chance for them to spend a lot of money and go spend weekends with family, entertaining clients, being able to claim sponsorship of these teams.
Dubai specifically has been like in the sports world, just getting some of the biggest like events, like because they have such like massive development in Dubai that like all these like big facilities can just be made, right? So it's like World's Strongest Man does a bunch of stuff over there, and like MMA is doing a ton. Fight Island and stuff is in Dubai, and like it's crazy how many of those. I know that one of the biggest jiu-jitsu tournaments and stuff is over there. Like there was one of those like oil princes or whatever, like personally funding a lot of that,
Yeah. Oh,
Like,
definitely. MBS for sure. Hey, Ricky's in chat. What's up,
Yeah.
Ricky? Ricky Rants.
What's up,
welcome
Ricky?
welcome to the show.